In one of the crowded working-class neighborhoods, where tangled electric wires hung in the dusty sky like dead snakes, and the air was thick with the smell of burnt oil mixed with the scent of cheap food, lived a young man in his early 20s named Yasser. He was thin, his deep eyes telling a story of daily struggle against the fierce winds of poverty. After failing to find a steady job, he was forced to join the ranks of the delivery army. Those modern knights riding their worn-out bicycles, delivering fast food to the city's residents for a few coins that barely kept the flame of hope alive in his chest. He worked for a small restaurant called Wafa. The place was humble to the point of misery, serving cheap meals to students and the poor. Its owner, a gruff man in his 50s named Atef, treated him harshly, constantly grumbling about the lack of orders and slow deliveries. Yasser dreamed of the day he would receive a big order, one that could change his day, maybe even his whole month. One autumn evening, when the sky was turning grey and dry leaves swirled in the streets like tiny ghosts, something unexpected happened. It was nearly 10 at night, and Yasser was finishing his exhausting shift, sitting on the curb outside the restaurant, eating the leftovers of an old sandwich, when his cracked smartphone buzzed. A new order had appeared on the delivery app. He checked the details, and his heart nearly leapt from his chest. It was a huge order, 20 full meals with drinks and desserts. The total amount equaled a week's profit. But what caught his attention even more was the delivery address. Villa number 8, Al Rahila Street, Old Alamal District. Yasser had never heard of that street. He asked Atef, who pursed his lips and said, flicking ash from his cigarette disdainfully, "An old abandoned neighborhood on the edge of the city. They say it used to be fancy back in the 70s, but everyone left. Don't go there at night, Yasser. People say things." But the desperate, greedy glint in Yasser's eyes made Atef shrug indifferently. "It's a big order, go, but come back quickly, and don't forget to bring the money." Yasser packed the large order carefully in cardboard boxes and strapped them securely to his old delivery backpack. His heart pounded faster as he pedaled toward the city's outskirts. With every turn of the wheel, the streetlights faded behind him. The buildings turned from crowded apartments to deserted workshops, then to empty lots scattered with garbage. The lampposts no longer worked, and the faint moonlight filtering through thick clouds was his only guide. The air grew cold and carried a strange rotten smell, like damp earth after years of drought. After more than an hour of pedaling through rough, uneven roads, he finally reached what seemed to be the start of a street. A rusted, crooked sign read, Al Rahila Street. The cobblestone road was uneven and cracked, with tall wild grass sprouting between the stones, reaching up to his knees. On either side stood old Italian-style villas now in ruins, broken windows, sagging balconies, and walls covered in dust and graffiti. A graveyard silence hung over the place, broken only by the squeak of his bike and the sound of his quickening breath. He slowed down, searching for number 8. The numbers on the iron gates were faded or missing. He felt as if dozens of unseen eyes were watching him from the dark windows. Finally, at the dead end of the street, where ancient trees formed a dark arch overhead, he found it. The villa. It was different from the others, not larger, but strangely preserved. A massive iron gate stood closed, though a narrow gap was enough for a person to slip through. The high wall was covered in thick ivy that seemed to be choking the building. Yasser got off his bike and stared at the dark structure. No light shone from within. He remembered Atef's warning, but also the money he would earn. He checked his phone. No signal. No service, the screen read. He sighed, pushed open the heavy gate which creaked like something alive and in pain, and stepped into the front garden. The air there was unnaturally cold, a chill that bit through his thin clothes and into his bones. He walked carefully along the cracked path leading to the main door, an enormous carved wooden door, once beautiful, now worn and dull. There was no doorbell, so he knocked. The echo of his knocks reverberated inside the house, as though the place were swallowing the sound. He waited minutes that felt like hours. No one came. He knocked again. This time, the echo was weaker, as if the house itself were breathing. He decided to try the door. He pushed gently, and to his surprise, it creaked open into darkness. "Hello? Delivery here," he called out, his voice trembling more than he wanted. No answer. He turned on his phone's flashlight and stepped inside. He found himself in a vast marble foyer. The floor was cracked, the ceiling high, with a dusty chandelier hanging from it. Portraits lined the walls, paintings of people from another time, their eyes seeming to follow him wherever he moved. Dust coated everything. The air smelled of mold, decay, and forgotten years. Then a sound, a faint creak, like footsteps on the upper floor. "Hello? Is anyone there? Your order?" He called again, his voice echoing weakly. Suddenly, he heard whispers, many voices, low and overlapping, surrounding him like waves of icy air. The words were faint, fragmented, gone, never returned. Here, stay. Yasser froze, fear gripping his spine. He swung the flashlight around, only to see shifting shadows moving with the light. "This isn't right," he muttered to himself. He decided to leave the order and get out. He placed the boxes on an old table near the door and turned to leave, but the heavy wooden door slammed shut behind him with a thunderous bang. He rushed to it, pulling, banging, shaking the handle. Locked. "No, no, no," he shouted, pounding the wood. The temperature dropped suddenly. His breath turned white in the air. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw movement on the grand staircase. He swung the light upward. There it was, a shadow, not fully human, half transparent, drifting down the stairs. A tall figure in old clothes, face blurred, eyes replaced by dark voids that radiated freezing cold. Yasser screamed and stumbled back. The shadow kept descending, not walking, but floating. Around him, more figures began to appear, smaller, dim shapes of women and children, all translucent, exuding sorrow, anger, and bitter cold. The whispers grew louder, a chorus of the dead. "Why did you come? You took it. Give it back. Stay. I don't know you. Let me go." Yasser shouted, pressing himself against the wall. The ghosts surrounded him, but did not touch him, moving in circles, filling the air with their icy presence. He felt dizzy, drained, as though they were sucking the warmth from his body. He noticed something. The ghosts recoiled from the light. His flashlight scared them back. He swung it left and right, forcing them to retreat. But his battery was dying fast. He knew he didn't have much time. Then he noticed the table again, the food boxes untouched. But beside them now was something new, a book, old and bound in brown leather. Keeping his light up, he crawled toward the table. The ghosts hung back, watching. He grabbed the book. The faded gold title read, "The Diaries of the Abdelghani Family." He opened it. The fragile, yellowed pages were filled with elegant handwriting. He skimmed through random paragraphs. It told of a wealthy family who once lived in this villa decades ago. The daughter, Wafa, had fallen in love with a poor servant. When her father found out, he banished the young man. Wafa took her own life out of heartbreak. After that, tragedy struck the family. One by one, they died in mysterious accidents, and the house became haunted by their sorrowful spirits. Wafa, the same name as the restaurant. It wasn't a coincidence. He looked around at the ghosts. Now that he knew, he could tell who they were. The tall man must be the father, the woman in the corner, the mother, others, the rest of the family. But Wafa herself was missing. Then he heard soft sobbing from upstairs, a woman's cry, broken and full of grief. He looked up. On the stairs stood a young woman's ghost, wearing a white dress. She was more distinct than the others, her face clear but sorrowful beyond words. She looked straight at him. Her lips moved, a voice echoed through the hall, gentle yet filled with anguish. "Gold, bring me my gold." He didn't understand. He looked at the diary again. On the last page there was mention of the bride's gold necklace, a gift Wafa wore on the night she died. It was never found. "I don't have your necklace," he said aloud. But she raised her hand and pointed toward his delivery bag, still by the door. Inside he kept his small wallet and receipts. He approached slowly, the ghosts watching. He opened the pocket and froze. Inside, beside his few coins, was a gold necklace, old and studded with pearls. He had never seen it before. Then he remembered. Before he left the restaurant, Atef had given him that old bag, saying he could use it. Atef must have put the necklace there. But why? Wafa's ghost began to move toward him, her expression turning from grief to fury. "Thief! Thief! Return my gold!" she screamed. The other ghosts howled in rage. The air grew so cold it burned. Icy hands reached for him. In a panic, Yasser lifted the necklace high. "Take it! It's not mine!" he shouted. Wafa stopped. Slowly she floated closer and raised her translucent hand. When her fingers nearly touched it, everything went still. The cries ceased. The ghosts froze. Then the necklace began to glow faintly in Yasser's hand, warm golden light spreading through his body. Wafaa took it, not physically, but it drifted toward her neck, resting there. Her expression changed, grief replaced by serenity. She looked at Yasser with silent gratitude. One by one, the ghosts around her began to fade, dissolving like mist in morning light. The whispers softened, then silence. The air warmed again. The smell of mold returned, but the crushing fear was gone. The heavy door creaked open on its own. Yasser didn't wait. He grabbed his bike and ran out through the garden, through the iron gate that screeched as it closed behind him. He didn't look back. He pedaled with all his strength toward the lights and noise of the living world. When he reached the restaurant, Atef was waiting by the door, pale and anxious. "Where's the money?" he rasped. Yasser looked at him for a long moment. Then he pulled the necklace from his pocket. He had grabbed it instinctively before it disappeared with the ghost. "This was in my bag. Why did you put it there, Atef?" Atef's face drained of color. His hands trembled. You saw them?" "Yes, I saw Wafaa. I saw them all." Atef collapsed into a chair and began to speak. He was the grandson of the poor servant who had once loved Wafaa. After her death, his grandfather had found the necklace in the garden and kept it as a memory. When he died, Atef inherited it. He opened his restaurant and named it Wafaa. But guilt haunted him. He knew the necklace should be returned. Too afraid to go himself, he had been sending new delivery boys there with it, hoping that somehow the curse would end. None had succeeded. They all came back terrified, their stories half finished. "But you did it. You freed them," Atef whispered, staring at the necklace. Yasser said nothing. He placed the necklace on the table, took his pay from the cash drawer without asking, and left the restaurant for good. He never worked as a delivery rider again. He found a job in a small carpentry workshop, far from darkness and ghosts. Yet on long winter nights when the wind howled and the trees groaned, he still remembered that night, the sorrow in Wafaa's eyes and the peace before she vanished. He had learned that some ghosts are real, but the most dangerous ones are the ghosts of conscience and greed that haunt the living. And sometimes, when he passed through a dark street and felt a faint chill brush his back, he no longer felt afraid, because he knew that some spirits only seek peace, and that the real darkness often lives in human hearts.